around the garage.
Okay, Brad, whenever you're ready.
All right, I'm going to kick us off on the assumption that Commissioner Ward Hyatt will be able to hear us in a minute. Good evening, everybody. I'm Brad Walker. I'm the chair of the Boston Land.
Well, it is nice.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm Brad Walker. I'm chair of the Boston Landmarks Commission. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Boston Landmarks Commission on Tuesday, May 12th at 6:05 p.m. Present are Commissioners Orlando, Mac Jones, Hoffman, Gagnon, Ward Hyatt, Haney, and myself. Also present are Boston Landmarks Commissioner staff, Chelsea Blanchard, who is staff architect. I see Sarah Lawton, preservation assistant, Jennifer Gaugler, architectural historian, Elizabeth Sherva, deputy director of the Office of Historic Preservation, Kathy Cotaridis, director of the Office of Historic Preservation. And I think that's it. Did I miss anybody? All right. You can participate in this hearing by going to the Zoom meeting link posted in our agenda online at www.zoomgov.com/J/1601664821 or by calling 646-828-7666 and by entering the meeting ID 160-166-4821. You may also submit written comments to us via email at blc@boston.gov. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, including the March 28, 2025 amendment extending the suspension of these provisions until June 30th, 2027, we are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Landmarks Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. This hearing is being recorded. All conversations between commissioners should be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has been adjourned. I'm going to suggest to everybody in the room that they take a minute to familiarize yourselves where the raise your hand function is. If at the appropriate time anybody wishes to be heard, you'll need to use the raise your hand function in order to be unmuted. I'm going to start by asking if there's any media or elected officials present. Please use the raise your hand function and identify yourself and state your name, title, and affiliation. Seeing none, let me just briefly summarize tonight's agenda so that anyone who's here in the audience knows when the matter they're hearing will come up. We're going to start, the matter they're interested would come up. We're going to start with ratification of the meeting minutes from April 28th. We then have a very brief annual meeting, which includes the election of the chair and vice chair. We will hear from the, consider the Swallow Mansion at 33 Cordis Street in Charlestown, which is a presentation of a study report and 2 votes, one to accept the study report and one potentially to vote on designation as a landmark. We then have 3 demolition delay items, 744 East 4th Street, South Boston, 595 East 7th Street in South Boston, and 3 to 4 Folsom Avenue and Mission Hill. Then we'll move on to staff updates and adjournment. So let's start with the ratification of the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes of the April 28th meeting were distributed to commission members prior to the meeting, and I open the floor to commissioners for any comments or corrections to those. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes as distributed.
I can make that motion, Brad, Justine.
Thank you. And a second, please.
I'll second it.
Sorry, I didn't catch who that might have been.
Angela?
Angela, thank you. All commissioners present would be voting. So Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagnon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So now we move on to the annual meeting of the Boston Landmarks Commission. Unless there's any late breaking news, I think the only nominees for the offices are the incumbents, myself as chair and Justine Orlando as vice chair. Would anyone like to nominate someone else at this time? All right, I would then entertain a motion to close nominations.
Make that motion, Brad. Jeffrey Haney.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And a second, please.
I'll second it, Angela.
All right, Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Mac Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagnon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Haney,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So if there are no further, excuse me, I'm on script. How does this actually work? Having closed nominations, Brad Walker nominated for chair and Justine Orlando for vice chair are hereby elected by unanimous consent. That concludes the annual meeting. All right, we move on to the Swallow Mansion, 33 Cordis Street in Charlestown. We're going to start with the presentation of the study report. The Boston Landmarks Commission is required to hold a public hearing on all proposed designations following the completion of a study report, which describes the significance of the property and the standards and criteria by which future changes can be evaluated. The study report is made available for public review and comment for at least 3 weeks before the hearing. The purpose of the hearing is to hear the findings of the study report, to hear testimony from interested parties, and to vote on the proposed designation unless the chair decides to extend the vote to a later date so the commission can acquire more information. And I would now ask Landmarks Commission architectural historian Jennifer Gaugler to make a brief presentation summarizing the findings of the study report.
Thank you, Brad. On January 14th, 2025, the Boston Landmarks Commission accepted a petition to study the designation of the Swallow Mansion at 33 Cordis Street in Charlestown as a landmark under Chapter 772 of the Acts of 1975 as amended. On April 21st, 2026, the Boston Landmarks Commission posted a study report on the proposed landmark, and I will now read a summary from that study report. Next slide. The Swallow Mansion, built in 1845, is architecturally significant as a rare Boston area example of a Greek Revival temple form house with a full-height columned portico capped by a pediment. Although their Greek Revival style was common throughout New England, only a handful of homes in Boston are temple fronts with full-height porches. With the monumentality of its columns, entablature, and pediment, the Swallow Mansion could be considered the finest example of a Greek Revival house in Charlestown and one of the finest in all of Boston. Next slide. The home was constructed in 1845 and passed through the hands of a few owners before it would come to the Swallow family for whom it is named. As you can see, the scale of the home is grand and impressive. Its elegant detailing includes floor-to-ceiling windows, pedimented dormers, wide, flat window and door surrounds, flush boarding on the front facade, and wooden clapboarding on the side, when you can see here, and the rear. Next slide. Here's a view of the rear corner showing an L on the right-hand side, which was constructed in the 1870s during the ownership of the Swallow family. Next slide. A closer look at 33 Cordis reveals that its ornament borrows heavily from fashionable Grecian pattern books with a few lingering federal-style details. The richest embellishments can be found at the entrance, where a monumental portico, as you see here, is fronted by fluted columns with finely carved Ionic capitals, all of which support a thickened tablature and a pediment. Beyond this, the house's decoration is plainer and simple. Its front facade retains its original flush boarding, which is a very rare feature in Charlestown today. Next slide, please. In this aerial view, you can get a sense of the front and side setbacks, which set the house apart from the surrounding fabric and contribute to its temple-like feel. From the south end of Cordis Street, the Swallow Mansion rests on its foundation like a temple projecting from the incline of Breed's Hill. Next slide. Details from the 1852 McIntyre map and the 1868 Sanborn map are shown here. Set back from the street, the house's position on its site is unique for the neighborhood. Next slide, please. You see a detail from the 1875 Hopkins Atlas here, and here we see the owner identified as Amaziah Swallow, the owner of one of Charlestown's largest grocery stores. He purchased the house at 33 Cordis Street in 1862. Swallow was a well-known figure in Charlestown, and his store, located at 12 and 13 City Square, was a fixture in the neighborhood for decades. By the 1870s, Swallow and Company held contracts with the federal government for supplying warships, and they made daily shipments to grocers across New England. The company's success propelled Swallow into the city's most prominent circles. Sadly, in 1879, he committed suicide. For more than 20 years, the Swallows continued to live at 33 Cordis Street, during which time his son, George Swallow, embarked on a career as a politician. In the 1880s and 1890s, George served in both the Massachusetts House of Representatives and Senate, and in 1903 he ran for mayor of Boston, ultimately losing against Democratic incumbent Patrick Collins. Next slide, please. In 1904, after roughly 50 years of ownership by the Swallow family, the house was sold to John and Ellen Buckley, who immigrated to the United States from Ireland. They lived in the house with their large family and rented out portions of the home to tenants. Next slide, please. It was likely during the years of the Buckley family's ownership, when the house was subdivided for tenants, that the single third-floor window in the house's pediment was expanded into a tripartite configuration, likely to provide more daylight for the tenants now living in that space. The Buckley family owned the house for about 40 years, after which they sold it to the Bassett family, who continued to use the house as an income-producing multifamily property. In 1954, the Bassetts sold 33 Cordis to Sylvester and Helen DiDiego of New Jersey, and the DiDiego family owned the house for over 60 years. During this time, Sylvester and Helen DiDiego, both of whom operated Sills Delivery Company, appear to have made few changes to their historic home over their long ownership. Their most significant updates appear to have occurred in 1965 when they made improvements to the kitchen and the bathroom and returned the house to a single-family dwelling for the first time since it was owned by the Swallow family. After Helen DiDiego's death in 2020, 33 Cordis Street passed to her children, and the house then sold to a new owner on April 24th, 2026, so just about 3 weeks ago. Next slide. The Swallow Mansion meets criteria B and D for designation as a landmark as established in Section 4 of Chapter 772. So criteria B is about outstanding events or aspects of the history of the city. And so I'd like to read, this is quoting from the study report, which was done by Carter Jackson, who did a really great job. So if I could just read these to you. Constructed at a moment of social tension, amid efforts to both create an upper-class enclave in Charlestown and counter increasing immigrant habitation in the area, the history of the Swallow Mansion uniquely centers around both Boston's political and merchant elite and its immigrants. The subtle changes made to its fabric, including the early 20th century alterations that transformed it from the high-style home of the prominent Swallow family into a multifamily home for Irish immigrants, make it a uniquely well-preserved example of Boston's elite housing stock, creatively adapted by underrepresented groups to help propel them into better standards of living. Next slide. It also satisfies criteria D, which is, sorry, one second, basically the architectural style criteria. So it is, as I said, a rare Boston area example of a Greek Revival temple form house with a full height columned portico capped by a pediment. It is only one of a handful of homes in Boston that is a temple front with a full height porch like this. And as I argued earlier, could be considered the finest example of a Greek revival house in Charlestown and one of the finest in all of Boston. And so because of that, Boston Landmarks Commission staff recommends that the commission designate the Swallow Mansion as a landmark, and that the effect of this designation would be that review by the Boston Landmarks Commission and or commission staff shall be required for any proposed alterations to the following elements: the exterior envelope of the building, and demolition, additions, or new construction in the front, side, and rear yards, including fences, screens, sheds, paving, and hardscape, and similar constructed elements. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Take a breath and then can you tell us, please, do we have any written public comment?
Yes, so we received 8 written public comments in support of designation as a landmark from Charlestown residents. I'll just read their names into the record: Emily Kish, Molly Ladd, Nancy Lieberman, Scott Haldane, Sarah Doggett, Jane O'Neill, and Judith McDonough, who you might recognize as former executive director of the BLC, and one anonymous comment. And all of these commenters wrote to convey their support for landmarking due to the house's historical and architectural significance. And then I'd also like to report that the BLC received a letter from Amanda Zettel, the president of the Charlestown Preservation Society, on behalf of their board of directors. And the letter concludes with the following statements I would just like to read into the record. The Charlestown Preservation Society respectfully and enthusiastically urges the Boston Landmarks Commission to vote to designate the Swallow Mansion at 33 Cordis Street as a Boston landmark. This building meets and exceeds the criteria for designation. It is architecturally exceptional, historically significant, and irreplaceable. Designation will protect it in perpetuity for the residents of Charlestown and for the broader public that benefits from Boston's extraordinary historic built environment. We are grateful for the Commission's attention to this matter and for the staff's thorough and thoughtful study report, and we stand ready to support the implementation of landmark standards and to work with the property owner and the Commission towards stewardship that honors this building's remarkable character. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. At this time now we move on to verbal testimony. And before we do that, I'm going to just ask if there are any legal representatives of any party in attendance tonight. Would you please use the raise your hand function in the Zoom platform? Press *9 if you're calling on a phone line, and identify yourself, please. All right. In case you didn't have a minute to do that, you can chime in, interrupt me, but we'll move on to verbal testimony. And we take that in a specific order as defined in our regulations. The order is first from elected officials, then from the Planning Department or the Massachusetts Historic Commission, who have statutory review responsibility, then from the property owner, then from those speaking or submitting written testimony at the hearing in support of designation, then from those speaking or submitting written testimony in opposition to designation, then from those who wish to comment not necessarily in support or in opposition, and finally from anyone with questions or rebuttals on the prior testimony. So if you wish to speak when I call your category, please use the raise your hand function or press *9 on your phone. Please state your name and your relationship to the property. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes for the petitioner spokesperson and the owner, and 2 minutes per person for others. Comments should be focused on the validity of the study report and the criteria for designation. We do not take comments about ownership or use or future development plans. So let me go through our list in order. Are there any elected officials wishing to speak? Please do raise your hand. See, John Kuiper, are you here as an elected official? Can we unmute John?
No, I'm not an elected official.
All right, I'm going to ask you to put your hand down then, and we'll get to people in the right order. Anyone else here as an elected official? Anyone from the Planning Department or the Massachusetts Historic Commission? Is the property owner here or a representative of the property owner? All right, now the first general category is anyone wishing to speak in support of this designation. No hands. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak at all, not necessarily in support or opposition? There we go.
Hello?
John.
Yeah, you're unmuted now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sitting next to John Kuiper. I'm presenting myself because I'm John and Ellen Buckley's great-grandson. And I'm totally in support of this, of course. My mother grew up in this house. And by the way, I don't even think it was divided into apartments during the ownership of the Buckleys, but many people lived there, including my mother's family. I have many stories. I would love to see the inside of it someday. I don't know if that's ever possible. But it is a beautiful place, and it is a joy to hear that this is happening. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, did you say you are John Kuiper or you're someone else? Just so we
My name is William Cody.
Thank you.
Yes. As I said, I wish I could show you a picture of Aunt Julia. She was the last owner, but she sold it in 1946, the year I was born.
Oh, you're welcome to email that in and we can keep it with the record.
Oh, good. Yeah. And my mother lived there when her grandfather died in 1923. John Buckley died in 1923. Her family moved in, and they lived for about 8 or 9 years there, and then left and moved to Jamaica Plain. And my great aunt kept it. I don't know what she was thinking, and she rented out the house, the majority of it, and kept an apartment on the top floor when she came back to Boston, and that was the status of the house until she sold it in 1946. And many people lived there, but I don't think it was turned into apartments, though.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
Is there anyone else wishing to raise your hand?
Everything's correct. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to be heard on the study report? All right, at this time, I would invite commissioners to offer comments, ask questions. The author of the study report is on the call. Commissioner Gagnon.
Just a quick note of thanks to staff on another really great study report. And it was a pleasure to see this property come through, given how few of these houses like this are in the city. I can think of maybe on one hand, all the ones I know in Roxbury and one in Dorchester, but it's also amazing to see them in this kind of brick row house setting. They stand out even more. So this was really a spectacular property. It was fascinating to read the study report, and just thanks for all your great work on it.
Carter Jackson, I see your hand. Let me just quickly check and see if there's other commissioners wishing to be heard. All right, can we unmute Carter?
Carter has been unmuted.
All right.
Hi there. Apologies for speaking at the wrong point. I just wanted to say it was a pleasure to write this report, and it's very rewarding to hear this gentleman who's a descendant of the Buckleys. When I first got involved in the project, I was drawn to it just for its architectural significance and to learn about this fascinating social history and connection to Irish immigrants. Made it doubly rewarding, and I think that piece of its history is every bit as important, if not more, than the architecture. So I just want to say I fully support this landmark. Thanks.
All right, if there are no further comments or discussion, I would entertain a motion to accept the study report.
I'll make that motion, Brad. Justine?
Thank you, Justine. And a second, please.
I'll second. This is Lindsay.
Jones. Commissioner Orlando.
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Gagnon.
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt.
Yes.
Commissioner Haney.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the study report is accepted. That concludes. I'll read this next part in before we go to the vote on designation.
I think we skipped the portion where we talk about that written statements can continue to be submitted for the record.
Okay. Thanks.
But I can do
You
that.
got that, I think.
Yeah. Let me know when you want me to do that.
I think we'll do that now.
Okay, perfect. So, as required by the BLC's regulations, written statements may be submitted for the record up until 3 working days following this hearing to the Boston Landmarks Commission at 26 Court Street, Floor 2, Boston, Mass. 02108. Statements may also be emailed to blc@boston.gov. An extension of time for submitting written testimony and a postponement of the designation vote may be granted tonight at the chair's discretion, and the public record of the hearing is available upon request to BLC staff at blc@boston.gov. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So given the record and the testimony we've received this evening about the study report, I believe the commission has the information it needs to proceed to a designation vote tonight. Even though the commission will vote on the designation tonight, staff will continue to accept written testimony for the record until this Friday, March 15th, 2026 at 5 p.m. So I would now accept a motion to designate 33 Cordis Street in Charlestown as a City of Boston landmark.
I'll make that motion, Brad. Jeffrey Haney.
Jeffrey, and a second.
I'll
I'll
second.
second it. Oh, second.
I think I saw Angela.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Orlando.
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Gagnon.
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt.
Yes.
Commissioner Haney.
Yes.
I vote yes. Commission, having voted to designate the landmark this evening, means that staff will create a vote of designation document that will present the details about the property, a list of commissioners' votes on the designation, and the date of the vote by the Boston Landmark Commission. This document will be sent to the city clerk, who advances it through the approximately 45-day mayoral and city council approval processes. Mayor shall transmit her approval or disapproval to the city council within 15 days. City council then has 30 days which to overturn by a 2/3 vote a designation approved by the mayor. Once the designation document is returned to the BLC by the city clerk, it is ready for the final step, which is recording with the Registry of Deeds. So thank you, everybody, and that concludes this agenda item. We're going to move on to the first of our demolition delay presentations. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether the Boston Landmark Commission should specify a demolition delay period pursuant to the Boston Zoning Code, Article 85, Chapter 665 of the Act of 1956, as amended, to be applied to 744 East 4th Street. Tonight's process will have one step instead of the allowed two-step process because the current applicant has waived their right to ask for a waiver of delay based on a review of feasible alternatives to demolition. Tonight, the commission will determine whether the building is preferably preserved and the 90-day demolition is invoked. And I would now ask Boston Landmark Commission staff, I think it's going to be Chelsea Blanchard, to please review the staff's finding regarding the significance of 744 East 4th Street.
Thanks, Brad. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. BLC staff has determined that 744 East 4th Street is significant within the meaning of the ordinance, specifically for item C, section 85.5.3C states that the building is historically or architecturally significant because of period, style, method of building, construction, or importance association with a famous architect or builder. And also E, the building is significant. Section section 85.5.3E states that the building is one whose loss would have a significant negative impact on the historical or architectural integrity or urban character or urban design character of the neighborhood.
All right. We want to get into more detail or just leave it at this summary?
Yep. No, we'll go ahead and read in the staff comments. And I should stop first and say thank you to someone who helped me with the research on this project. She's actually the abutter at 742 East 4th Street. Her name is Elizabeth Rhodes, professor of history at Boston College. So I can't take all the credit for this research. The building at 744 East 4th Street is historically significant. The Victorian-era building is a simple mansard Second Empire style house, which is currently clad with stucco and has its original window sizes reduced. Although the cladding and the current windows are not original, the massing and form of this historic building is unaltered. The curved mansard roof with dormers, the front steps with ornate cast iron stair railing, the projecting front entrance portico, and the stately granite entry pillars are features that all harken back to a time where this was once one of the most important buildings in South Boston. More on that in a minute. The BLC staff encourages the owner to consider a development proposal that retains the original building. Our slides will show photographs of the building when it was first completed, which could be used as a roadmap for restoration. And actually, some of the photographs have quite fine detail. So were someone wanting to preserve this building, we have the documents to help you. The house at 744 East 4th Street is a contributing building to this block of important Victorian buildings, which is one of the most consistent blocks of historic buildings in South Boston. Demolishing this building will destroy this rhythm of this row of historic buildings. This area of South Boston and this particular address represents several interesting periods of South Boston's history. In the process of the annexation of South Boston from Dorchester in 1804, the Massachusetts General Court required that the proprietors of South Boston assign and set apart 3 lots for public use, namely 1 lot for a public marketplace, 1 lot for a schoolhouse, and 1 lot for a burial ground, to the satisfaction and acceptance of the selectmen of the town of Boston. The site of the existing house thus eventually became part of the campus of what was known as the House of Reformation, which aimed at reforming juvenile offenders and was established in this location in 1824. It was one of several buildings, institutional buildings, including the House of Industry, the House of Correction, and the House of Correction. These buildings were particularly designated to address poverty and crime in the city of Boston. The other 2 institutions were located on the 53-acre campus to the north of the current area, in the current area of East 1st Street. The House of Reformation and the House of Industry moved to new locations out on the Boston Harbor Islands in the 1850s, while the House of Correction and the Lunatic Asylum remained until the 1890s. After these institutions were moved to the Boston Harbor Islands, the land was redeveloped with a park Currently, today's M Street Park, and streets were laid out and extended, replacing the fenced-in institutional grounds. And I should also mention that if you could see on this slide to the right, I put a tiny little orange arrow, I hope you can see it, that is exactly where this current 74 East 4th Street house was located. And it's notable only because this is a carriage gate entrance to the many institutional buildings here on this campus. And so it's totally possible that the granite pillars that flank the entry of 744 East 4th Street were actually original to these city lands and these institutional buildings. Once the public lots on the East 4th Street land were sold and developed, an institution called the City Point Catholic Association leased the building at 744 East 4th Street from the Gate of Heaven Church and began using it for their clubhouse for their organization. This was a men's social club aimed at doing good works, and it was described as one of the foremost young men's organizations in the district. There are numerous Boston Globe articles describing balls, fundraisers, and all kinds of gatherings being held at this location. On November 20th in 1905, the Boston Globe featured the clubhouse showing a handsome image of the facade of the house and also an interior parlor image, which was really fascinating. The building is also described in Toomey and Rankin's A History of South Boston as a commodious and well-appointed clubhouse. When the Catholic Church deaccessioned the building, it became the residence of James Cleary. He was the first post-institution owner of this building and was also an Irish immigrant and a stucco worker, suggesting that the existing stucco could be original to the stewardship of the house, of his stewardship of this house. And that's all I have, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on now and see if we can hear from the applicant. Invite the applicant to present any information that would assist the commission in determining whether the building is historically significant or architecturally significant. And you may address the condition of the building. Your presentation should be limited to information regarding the significance and condition of the building and should not address alternatives to demolition, proposed projects, or the suitability of the building for any proposed use. Is the owner, the new owner, presumably, of the building present? I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that Richard Linz, with his hand raised, may be here on behalf of the new owner. Can we unmute Richard Linz?
Richard Linz, you should be able to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Richard Linz. I'm an attorney with a business address at 245 Sumner Street on behalf of 744 East 4th Street LLC. Before I give you my comments, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I just had a question that I had repeatedly asked commission staff and I've not received an answer. I sent several emails to the director as well as Ms. Blanchard, and I'd like to know which date was the Inspectional Service Department notified of the Article 85 determination, the preliminary determination that was sent to our client on April 6th.
Chelsea, do you have the date?
So that's actually not what the script allows for us to talk about right now. And
okay.
I actually haven't answered your email. And
I've received no answers to any emails for the record. So I'll proceed, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay. First of all, with respect to all three of these Article 85 hearings, you have my objections that were submitted on April 24th of this year. The hearings on all three of these matters, and I tried to raise my hand before you started to open the hearing. but you can't proceed. The authority conferred on this commission has expired pursuant to Article 85. And I've spelled that out in the objections that have been provided to the commission as part of the record. I've not received any response to any of those objections, either from council, staff, or anybody on behalf of the commission. And so and I've provided some materials to be included that would illustrate why there is no jurisdiction to have this hearing this evening. If you would allow me to share my screen, I can put the presentation up. Otherwise, I can just go ahead with our argument as to why the commission cannot proceed this evening.
I don't think this is the forum where we're going to do that.
I have no other choice, Mr. Chairman. You're proceeding without authority here, and there's ample evidence in the record that I've provided the commission that you do not have the ability to hold this hearing.
I appreciate your views, and I appreciate that you have provided that to commission staff in writing, but I invite you at this time to talk about the merits of this particular
I can't do that, Mr. Chairman, because that would be waiving our objection that you actually have the power authority to hold this hearing. First of all, I think the commission should be well aware that Section 85-41 C2 of Article 85 permits ISD to issue a demolition permit if the commission has not received a notice of determination within 40 days of the application filing date. That deadline has passed by all reasonable calculations, whether you want to say when it's the date that the application was filed or the date in which it was completed or a complete application received by the commission. Because of this, any restriction on ISD issuing a demolition permit has been effectively terminated. The commission lacks the authority to impose demolition delay this evening, and that's under a plain reading of Article 85 on any building where the permitting process no longer requires it. The commission's own procedures acknowledge that you require a signed waiver form from the applicant to extend Article 85 deadlines, including the hearing date. I heard in your last hearing talking about the landmark designation that there are specific timelines and deadlines that the commission has to follow under the Enabling Act. No different here when it comes to Article 85, Mr. Chairman. And because there was no such waiver, holding this hearing more than 40 days after the application filing date, however we want to measure that, the commission is acting unilaterally to extend a deadline that it itself has acknowledged requires the applicant's consent. You need to look no further than the communications that get sent out to the applicant, Mr. Chairman, that actually require a waiver to be signed to extend any time in the hearing. So for example, when the commission asks an applicant to either consider submitting alternatives, one of the things that the commission does is provides a form. And that form says that a waiver of the time in between the time of the application being filed and the 40-day deadline has to be agreed to. And that if that waiver is not agreed to, then the commission can't proceed. So
Brad,
I don't understand how the commission can continue.
Brad, I think that we can move on. This is not.
I'm speaking, Ms. Blanchard, I'm speaking. This is a public hearing. This
It's
is
a public hearing, but it's scripted.
And I represent the applicant, and this is a legitimate objection before the commission. The commission, as a public body, has the obligation to hear this objection. Are you not allowing me to raise this objection?
So
I think we've heard it, and my understanding is that you've also submitted it in writing.
I'd like to make a record, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay. I think the record is important to be clear, especially for the public who's attended here this evening. I understand Ms. Blanchard does not want us to speak on this. She's not a commissioner. This is a commission hearing, and the commission itself has to be able to hear this objection.
Richie,
I just want to say, like, the 5 minutes are up, Brad.
Yeah.
It is at your
discretion. We're not getting comment on the topic at hand, so I think we need to move on. I do appreciate that you've restated your objections. I understand they've been stated in writing, and they will move through the appropriate processes. I'm going to open the floor to members of the public who now have an opportunity to comment on the significance of the building and whether or not demolition delay should be imposed. To do so, please raise your hand in the application Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and are not using the platform, you can use *9 to raise your hand, and you can use, send your questions to staff via email at blc@boston.gov. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person, and as mentioned previously, but apparently worth reinforcing, the comment is limited to information regarding the significance and condition of the existing building and should not address alternatives to demolition, proposed projects, or the suitability of the building for any proposed use. Are there members of the public wishing to be heard? Is someone named Rhodes who had their hand up first?
Yep, that is in a butter. Elizabeth Rhodes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You have 2 minutes.
I just wanted to add to Chelsea's observations that the railings coming down from the stairs at the entrance to this building form an architectural echo, as you can see on the right-hand photo, with the following buildings down the block. They were made by the South Boston Ironworks Company that was founded in 1827, and that particular pattern is a landmark of the block. Thank you.
Thank you. Unmute Luann.
Luann, I've asked you to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Luann O'Connor. I'm the president of the City Point Neighborhood Association. And we would like to go on record that we opposed this project, both for zoning and for demolition. We have a lot of historic homes in South Boston, this being one of them. And as you can see, it's attached to the rows of bricks as well. Across the street is the Tuckerman School, which is a very old school. So this is a significant area of historical value to South Boston. And with that, we ask that you do not allow this particular building to be torn down, but for it to be landmarked and saved. I'm not sure whether Landmarks has its own legal counsel. I would hope so, but I don't think that Attorney Lintz should be telling Landmark what its right is, what it's allowed to do and what it's not allowed to do. He did the same thing at the Zoning Board of Appeals. So with that, that's how we feel. We're hoping that you will save our historic homes in South Boston and grant them that designation. Thank you.
Just to be clear, Luann, this is not a hearing about designation as a landmark. This is a demolition delay, potentially of only 90 days, up to 90 days under the zoning code. Don't want you to feel like there's more possible out of tonight's meeting than will be possible. If there's no further public comment, I'm going to ask staff, Chelsea, have there been any written comments?
We have received 3 written comments in favor of invoking the delay, and I'm pleased to see that Luann was able to join, because I was going to report that her group, the City Point Civic Association, voted against this, voted in favor of invoking the delay.
All right. Commissioners, I open the floor to your comments or questions, discussion before we move to a vote. No commissioner wishes to be heard. I would entertain a motion to invoke demolition delay.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Gagnon. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Is that Commissioner Hoffman?
Yep.
Thank you. All commissioners voting. Commissioner Orlando.
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Gagnon.
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt.
Yes.
Commissioner Haney.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the Boston Landmarks Commission finds that it is in the public interest that it is preferable that the building at 744 East 4th Street be preserved or rehabilitated rather than be demolished. Therefore, the Boston Landmarks Commission has determined that this significant building is subject to the demolition delay, and the Commissioner of Inspectional Services shall not issue a demolition permit until August 11th, 2026, which is 90 days from the close of today's public hearing. The applicant shall be responsible for properly securing and protecting the building during this time, but they are subject to delay under Article 85. And that concludes this matter. And we move on to a demolition delay hearing regarding 595 East 7th Street, also in South Boston. Purpose of this hearing is to determine whether the Boston Landmarks Commission should specify a demolition delay period pursuant to the Boston Zoning Code, Article 85, Chapter 665 of the Act of 1956, as amended, to be applied to 595 East 7th Street. The process will have one step instead of the allowed two-step process, because the current applicant has waived their right to ask for a waiver of demolition, ask for a waiver of delay based on the review of feasible alternatives to demolition. Tonight, the Commission will determine whether the building is preferably preserved and the 90-day demolition would be invoked. And I would now ask Boston Landmarks Commission staff to review staff findings regarding the significance of 595 East 7th Street Commission. Chair recognizes Chelsea Blanchard. Muted, Chelsea.
Muted. Hello again. The BLC staff has determined that 595 East 7th Street is significant within the meaning of the ordinance, specifically for section 85.5.3C, which states that the building is historically or architecturally significant because of period, style, method of building construction, or important association with the famous architect or builder. And also section E, 85.5.3E states that the building is one whose loss would have a significant negative impact on the historical or architectural integrity or urban design character of the neighborhood. And if you don't mind, Brad, I'll just go ahead with the staff.
Yep, please.
Okay. This building is historically significant for its age, style, and setting. The building was built in 1874 and is an example of the Victorian era Italianate architecture style. The building has been minimally altered and still showcases many of the original Italianate features. The building is located on a block with almost contiguous Second Empire, Greek Revival, and Italianate buildings, and is one of the more stately buildings on the block due to its siting on a large lot with generous side yard setbacks. 595 East 7th is an excellent example of the Italianate variant known as the center gabled Italianate, with its handsome roof peak defining the center bay of the building. Could you flip to the picture of the building while we talk about it? Thank you. So you can see that little center roof peak, which is how it gets its name as a centered gabled Italianate. Other typical features of the Italianate style, which are featured at 595 East 7th, are the wide overhanging roof eaves, which would have had decorative brackets at its construction. The front porch spanning the facade of the building, replete with decorative brackets and columns. The large window sizes at the first floor, and the lovely front porch entry with granite steps and gate entry bollards, again, also seen in the last house that we looked at. In the case of 595 East 7th Street, the center and north bays of the front porch have been infilled, which is a modification that could easily be rectified. Especially in this case, staff encourages the Commission to invoke the demo delay and also encourages the applicant to consider a development plan to incorporate this important historic building instead of demolishing it. BLC staff is always available to the applicant to discuss a project that includes the preservation of the building rather than the demolition. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Chelsea. And I would now invite the applicant to present information that would assist the Commission in determining whether the building is historically significant or architecturally significant. You may address the condition of the building. Your presentation should be limited to information regarding the significant condition of the existing building and should not address alternatives to demolition, proposed projects, or the suitability of the building to any proposed use. The applicant here
I believe Mr. Linz is representing the applicant.
All right, let's try this again. Do we have the same objections procedurally as last time or different ones?
We do. I have some additional information to add, Mr. Chairman. If I may get my 5 minutes, this is a public hearing. Once again, I do represent the applicant who has a property interest in the subject property that's before the commission. So I think it's incumbent upon the commission to at least let me speak. You may not like what I have to say, but I at least should have the ability to speak on the issues that are germane to Article 85. I do represent 3 Cutler Court LLC, which is the owner of the property of 595 East 7th Street. You do have my objection, once again for the record, filed with the commission on April 24th. I have not received any response from either council, the commission, or staff, and I believe that the same issues apply in this case as they did in the past. We just heard Ms. Blanchard talk about a lot of information that the commission is being provided to make a determination as to whether or not delay should be imposed. That information comes from the sections in Article 85 that require this commission to make that determination when timely presented. It's unclear to me that the procedural issues that go along with Article 85 aren't equally as important. They should be, because they're all within Article 85, and the power of this commission to impose delay comes from the standards that are set forth in Article 85, but also they must do so within the time frame set forth therein. Again, the commission knows this, staff knows this. This isn't something that's a surprise to the commission with staff. You have 10 days to make a preliminary determination from filing. You have 40 days to hold a hearing. We're beyond the 40 days at this point. There is no jurisdiction under Article 85 for the commission to impose delay. The previous one that you just imposed delay upon is subject of an appeal to the zoning board based upon the fact that you don't have the authority to do so. This isn't that difficult, Mr. Chairman. You count the days. If you're out of time, you're out of time. You cannot hold a hearing. The Commissioner of Inspectional Services is not bound by any 90-day delay that is imposed. And certainly the property owner is not bound by any 90-day delay that's imposed, including any obligations that Article 85 imposes. So I just want to make it clear for the record that if the commission wants to impose delay, they have to do so timely. If not, they have to get a waiver, and the waiver is very clear. It gives the commission the ability to extend these deadlines, which are set forth in black and white, and it's measured from the time the application is filed. In this particular case, the commission missed both. You missed the opportunity to issue a preliminary determination within 10 days of application filing, and you missed the opportunity to hold a public hearing within 40 days and make this determination. Based upon both of those particular issues in this case, the commission should be dismissing the petition and informing the Commissioner of Inspectional Services that the time had been missed and that a demolition permit can issue and that no delay would be imposed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lin. At this time, I would move on and invite other members of the public. Oh, wait a minute. Do we have written public testimony or comments, Chelsea?
Thanks, Brad. We actually have not received any public comment for or against invoking the delay. Thank you.
Thank you. The members of the public will now have an opportunity to comment on the significance of the building and whether or not the demolition delay should be imposed. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in or not using the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand on your telephone. And you can send your questions to staff via email at plc@boston.gov. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person. I see someone called Terry Evans with a hand raised.
Terry, I've unmuted you.
Yes, my name's Terry Evans, and I own the property at 589 East 7th Street. you actually can see the two-family way over to the right on the other hand of the White House, which is in question. Actually, it's a separate residence, sorry. So there's another house between us. But I just want to say I encourage the commission to please consider invoking the demolition delay. I'm just very concerned with the irreparable damage to the character of the streetscape, to the integrity of the neighborhood architecture, and you know, and in respect for the historical significance of not only that particular home, but of the street and the neighborhood in general.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to be heard? I'd like to open the floor to commissioners, please. Comments, questions, discussion. All right. I would now ask that BL staff provide their recommendations on this matter. Did we sort of cover that earlier?
You're right. We're supposed to say it again, but staff does recommend that the demo delay be invoked for this property.
Thank you. And I would entertain a motion to invoke demolition delay.
So moved.
Commissioner Gagnon, and a second, please.
I'll second it, Angela.
Angela Ward Hyatt. All commissioners voting, starting with Commissioner Orlando.
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Gagnon.
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt.
Yes.
Commissioner Haney.
Yes.
And I vote yes. The Boston Landmarks Commission finds that in the public interest, it is preferable that the building at 595 East 7th Street be preserved or rehabilitated rather than demolished. Therefore, the Boston Landmarks Commission has determined that this significant building is subject to the demolition delay, and that Commissioner of Inspectional Services shall not issue a demolition permit until August 11th, 2026, which is 90 days from the close of the hearing. The applicant shall be responsible for properly securing and protecting the buildings during the time that they are subject to delay under Article 85. That concludes this agenda item. We'll move on to the next one, another demolition delay at 3-4 Folsom Avenue in Mission Hill. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether the Boston Landmarks Commission should specify a demolition delay period pursuant to the Boston Zoning Code, Article 85, Chapter 665 of the Acts of 1956 as amended, to be applied to 3-4 Folsom Avenue. Tonight's process will have one step instead of the allowed two-step process, because the current applicant has waived their right to ask for a waiver of delay based on a review of feasible alternatives to demolition. Tonight, the commission will determine whether the building is preferably preserved, and the 90-day demolition delay would be invoked. Now ask Boston Landmarks Commission staff, please, to review the staff findings regarding significance for 3-4 Folsom Avenue with the commission, and the chair recognizes again Chelsea Blanchard.
Hi again. So this satisfies more of the criteria, so I have to read a couple more of these statements. BLC staff has determined that 3-4 Folsom Avenue is significant within the meaning of the ordinance, specifically for section 85.5.3b, which states, the building is the subject of a petition to the Landmarks Commission for designation as a Boston landmark. Also section 85.5.3C, which states that the building is historically or architecturally significant because of period, style, method of building, construction, or important association with a famous architect or builder. Also, section 85.5.3D, which states that the building has an important association with one or more historic persons or events, or with the broad architectural, cultural, political, economic, or social history of the city. And also section 85.5.3E, which states that the building is one whose loss would have a significant negative impact on the historical or architectural integrity of the urban design character of the neighborhood. Brad, I'm going to read some staff comments.
Yep, let's do that
They're
now.
extremely abbreviated because we've just a few weeks ago heard a lot of these comments when we entertained the petition for designation. So I'll start. The building at 3 to 4 Folsom Avenue in Mission Hill is historically significant. It is an 1847 double Italianate house with a T-shaped plan. It is a 6-bay main facade with projecting and paired center entrances, which are flanked by simple pilasters. It has an unusual bracketed porch hood with scalloped barge boards, which span the length of the main facade. The first floor windows feature hooded lintels. In general, the windows contain 6/6 wood sash. The house rests on a Roxbury pudding stone foundation and rises 2 floors to a gable roof with brackets and a centered octagonal cupola. It is one of the oldest houses in the Mission Hill neighborhood, and has historic associations with the Folsom families and was the boyhood home of Augustine H. Folsom, an important 19th and 20th century photographer, late 19th, early 20th century photographer. And as noted before, this property is currently the subject of a City of Boston Landmarks petition, and as such, the demo delay should be invoked. That's it, Brad.
Thank you, Chelsea. And I would now invite the applicant to present information that would assist the commission in determining whether the building is historically significant or architecturally significant. You may also address the condition of the building. Your presentation should be limited to information regarding the significance and condition of the existing building. It should not address alternatives to demolition, proposed projects, or the suitability of the building for any proposed use. Attorney Linz, I'll certainly give you a few minutes to state your procedural objection.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Richard Linz, 245 Sumner Street, on behalf of Ridge Beta LLC. And once again, you do have my objection that was filed with the commission on the 24th of April. I would point out, and before I do that though, Mr. Chairman, is council present for the commission?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. With respect to 3-4 Folsom, Mr. Chairman, this one might be the most egregious example of missing the timeline for an Article 85 application. The application was filed with the commission on February 24th of 2026. That means by March 6th, a preliminary determination was required, which is 10 days after filing. And therefore, if it was not issued by that date, then there can be no further action taken, and the Article 85 demolition delay right by the commission is waived. The notice of preliminary determination wasn't issued in this until April 6th of 26. That's 31 days beyond the deadline of when it should have been issued. And as a result, the public hearing is now being held on May 12th, which is 77 days after filing. There is nothing in Article 85 that allows the commission to do what it is doing in these instances, including extending unilaterally these deadlines in order to suit the opportunity to impose delay on this property. And that is a legitimate objection on all 3 of these, Mr. Chairman. It's something that the commission should take very seriously, if it takes seriously its duties and obligations, not only under its Enabling Act, but certainly under the provisions of Article 85, which it, certainly by the ordinance, is obligated and required to administer. The commission is taking steps in hearing information and presentations from staff on, again, the exact same elements that are important to making the determination of Article 85 as to whether a delay should be imposed. If that is important to the commission on voting to invoke delay, it should be equally important to the commission as to whether or not it was done timely. That is the essence of Article 85. The timeline is critical to the jurisdiction of the commission to act, and you're acting outside of your statutory authority as set forth under Article 85. The reason I asked if council was present, typically when this comes up in a public hearing setting, Mr. Chairman, I hear from council from the body to express why the commission or the body could proceed, or that there's not an issue, especially when I provide an objection well in advance with an opportunity to respond. I've received none of that. I've received nothing from the commission on the record tonight stating that there is a basis for jurisdiction in proceeding and to oppose delay. Now, I understand this one is also subject of a petition to designate as a landmark, which we have a separate objection for, and I need to get into that. But that doesn't trump or negate anything that Article 85 says this commission is obligated to do under the requirements, especially the timelines that are set forth. Even if the commission wants to come up with this theory about completeness, and we've talked a lot about that in our objections, this still is being held more than 40 days after when the application was deemed complete. If the commission is in possession of a complete application, again, you have 10 days to issue preliminary determination, and you have 40 days to hold the hearing. If we measured it from when even the commission says the application is complete, which is April 1st, you're still out of time. It's a day, you're a day late. The hearing should have happened yesterday under the ordinance. You cannot extend the timelines unilaterally without consent or without a waiver. And you don't have that in this case, and therefore you don't have the authority to act. So therefore, once again, respectfully, I ask the commission to follow Article 85. Article 85 says you have 40 days to hold your hearing and make a determination. We will concede that April 1st would be deemed the complete date by your own email, by Ms. Blanchard's email saying that it's April 1st was the complete date. Today is 41 days. Therefore, you are out of time to impose delay. And to put that burden on a property owner by a public agency, a public commission like this Landmarks Commission, is unfortunate, because it's pretty clear that you do not have the authority to do this. And I think that council should have at least been present or provided us with the response as to why the commission believes it can go forward regardless of this obvious error in the time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lin. Chelsea, has any public comment been heard on this, received on this, written public comment?
Yes. We actually have 19 letters of public comment in our record. And there's one that I think we should probably read into the record, if you don't mind, Brad.
Thank you.
So this is from Meredith Clark. And I think I'll just read the whole thing. It's pretty brief. 3 Folsom Ave was in my family for decades and holds the stories and memories of a family of Irish immigrants, fresh out of Ellis Island, as they built a life, a family, and a community in Mission Hill. I grew up tripping on the cobblestones, getting splinters from the floor, and learning about my dad's family setting in Mission Hill, raising 3 generations of Mahoneys and Clarks, and telling the story of a family of immigrants and how they came to be here, their struggles, sacrifices, and joy. This house is not only historic to me and my family, but to the city of Boston, and how it holds the weight, history, and complexities of a newly arrived family and what it means to be an American. A signal of the melting pot that is America, and Boston specifically, and the Irish American experience. It would be a tragedy to demolish 3 Folsom Ave, and the history and the culture of Boston would suffer for it. And I thank Meredith Clark for that nice letter that came in. And as I stated before, Brad, we have 18 other members
Do
of
we
the
want
public.
Are you able to summarize number in favor, number opposed of the 18?
They are all in favor.
All in favor. All right, thank you.
There was one that's wrote opposed, but when you read the comments, it's actually that they are in favor. I think our wording on this article is always a little bit difficult.
All right, I'm going to open the floor to public comment.
Let's see.
A couple of people.
See Mitch Hilton.
Mitch, I've asked you should be able to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Mitch Hilton. I live at 59 Iroquois Street on Mission Hill. I'm a homeowner. I've lived on Mission Hill for over 50 years. I respectfully ask that the request for demolition delay be invoked because of the building's historic and architectural significance. I really have little to add to the touching comments by Meredith Clark. She is a Mahoney. That building was in the Mahoney family. Well, really, since I've been on the Hill, which is over half a century, it is beautiful architecturally, as others will comment, and as your staff has noted. It's very much a part of the early history of Mission Hill, dating to the beginning, the 1840s, 1850s, when Mission Hill was a neighborhood of farmland, and buildings like this were built by large landowners. It's also the formal residence of the famed photographer FOLSOM. So I respectfully request that the demolition delay be invoked so that the issue could be studied further. Thank you.
Can we unmute Kay Veroci? I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing
Yes.
that.
Oh,
Sorry, I am here. Can you hear me? Yes.
yes.
Yep. Yes, Kara Baraki, you were close. I just want to also echo what Mitch Hilton said, and am in favor of the permit delay, the demolition delay. This area of Mission Hill has some of the oldest buildings. This building has been constantly occupied. It doesn't look in great condition right now, but it has been in great condition in the past. It fits into the environment where it sits, where it's also surrounded by other buildings from the 1840s, 50s, and 60s. My house is just up the street, which was built in 1897. I kind of fail to see what else would be able to fit behind that. It's actually in back of 4 other houses right now, and it's surrounded on all sides. It's already divided into multiple units, so it's a fully utilized property. It has a great cobblestone street that has been there, ever since I've been a resident on Mission Hill. And I also think that the owner, if I'm correct, who the applicant is, that person is engaged in many other projects at this time. So I don't see why there's such a problem with a one-day delay. But that's all I have to say. It would really be a loss to the community. And the way this building is situated, it looks down Folsom Ave straight at what is community gardens and will be a beautiful community space. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Allison, can you unmute Allison?
Yes,
Hi.
thank you, Elizabeth and Brad. My name's Allison Polton, 81 Lawn Street on the back of the hill, and I did a lot of the research for the landmark petition. I just want to say thank you to everybody, my neighbors and others who submitted support letters for asking for demolition delay, and for the people who supported the landmark petition in April. And I too knew the Mahoneys and Clarks when I lived on Folsom Ave in the 80s. So we are a small, tight community, and truly appreciate my neighbors' support. I have nothing to add, really. I think, and I hope this process will go well. I wish we all were lawyers, actually, but we're not. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Anyone else in the public wishing to comment? Chelsea, I think for the record, I am supposed to ask for staff's actual recommendation on this matter.
So the BLC staff recommends that the demo delay be invoked for this property.
Thank you. And I would now open the floor to commissioners for comments and discussion. If no commissioners wish to be heard, I would entertain a motion to invoke demolition delay.
I'll make that motion, Brad. Justine?
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Frigano, thank you. Commissioner Orlando.
Yes.
Commissioner Mac Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Gagno.
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt.
Yes.
Commissioner Haney.
Yes.
I vote yes. Boston Landmarks Commission finds that it is in the public interest to preferably preserve the building at 3 to 4 Folsom Avenue to be rehabilitated rather than be demolished. Therefore, the Boston Landmarks Commission has determined that this significant building is subject to the demolition delay, and that the Commission of Inspectional Services shall not issue a demolition permit until August 11th, 2026, which is 90 days from the close of the public hearing. The applicant shall be responsible for the property, securing and protecting the building during the time that they are subject to delay under Article 85. So that concludes our 3 Article 85s. That's the most we've ever done in one night. I'm not sure. And I would recognize Elizabeth Sherba, Deputy Director of the Office of Historic Preservation, to do a staff update.
Thanks, Brad. The next Boston Landmarks Commission hearing will be on Tuesday, May 26th. Currently, we have the Design Review Subcommittee starting at 4 p.m. and the business hearing will begin at 6 p.m. Wanted to update you on some recent votes that you've had. The Copley Plaza Hotel and Memorial Hall have both officially gone to the mayor and city council and have received approvals. And so we will be bringing over the final pieces of paperwork to the Registry of Deeds tomorrow. And we have 2 new landmarks in the city of Boston. The next item I wanted to just alert you to was the Preservation Massachusetts Awards. They're going to be holding their awards ceremony June 11th at Fenway Park in the evening. Obviously, they are honoring projects around the Commonwealth, but I did want to let you all know that there are a number of projects right here in Boston that are receiving awards, including the Fens Gatehouse, the Greenwood Memorial UMC restoration, the St. Luke's Chapel renovation and restoration, the Henry G. Dorr building rehabilitation, the Easton building, the Newell and Weld boathouses, which are Boston and Cambridge, the Paul Revere Mall, and the Boston Public Garden Child Fountain restoration. Additionally, there is a 2026 People's Choice vote. You can go on their website and vote. And of the nominees for People's Choice Award, we do have a couple in Boston. If you want to support those, you can take a look at the Newell and Weld boathouses St. Luke's Chapel renovation and restoration, the Henry G. Dorr building restoration, and the Paul Revere Mall. And finally, just wanted to let you all know again, I think I mentioned it before, the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions is holding their annual meeting in Minneapolis, July 24th through 26th, and have a wide range of sessions and tours. Some of the sessions include preservation tools beyond the historic district, energy retrofits, achieving a resilient future in historic districts, identifying modern resources in your community, and practical landscape design guidelines for historic districts. If anybody's interested in learning more, you can find all the information on the National Alliance of Preservation Commission's website, or just let me know and I can forward that information along. And that is all I have for this evening.
It was a lot. Thank you. I'll open the floor briefly to commissioners. Anyone have any news they want to share or discussion points?
I have a question for Elizabeth. Where is the Fenway ceremony going to take place at Fenway Park?
That you would have to check the Preservation Massachusetts Awards website.
Okay.
It holds all the information on the dates, times, and locations, and the tickets that are available.
Okay.
I can chime in to say it's in the I think it's called the 351 Club, the kind of event space at the outer edge of the park, which is really a spectacular place to be.
Yeah.
Park, you're looking down on the whole thing. So
Thanks, Jeffrey.
And also just to add to Liz's list, Macris is being acknowledged with an award, which we all know what an indispensable tool that is that MHC has provided to us. And when you try to look up historic resources in other states, you realize how lucky we are to have what we have here. So that's another, in addition to the projects, that initiative to survey and put online our resources is being acknowledged with an award, which is really a great thing.
Agreed.
Anybody else? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Kirsten. Is there a second, please?
I'll second. Justine?
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.